So this is a short video on Shakti that I wanted to do, and just to speak a little bit about how Shakti relates to our lives on a more practical level. So Shakti is essentially the creation, the manifestation. She is the creative principle, and usually so life is considered to be the dance between the form and formless, Shiva Shakti, and Shiva is the absolute, the unmanifest potential, and Shakti is his creative power. So they're not actually male and female, even though the representation is one of such, but they are different modes of consciousness. So Shakti is the energy and Shiva is the Purusha, the witnessing principle. And I think it's really interesting and also important to look at Shakti and how it relates to our experience of life. So many of us are very familiar with worship of the Devi, of the Mother Goddess, of the rituals that are involved, but not necessarily aware of certain deeper insights into what Shakti is and how it's applicable to even to our daily life, understanding what Shakti is. So it's a good starting point to start with the description of the Navratri period, which is currently going on. So the Navratri period is divided into actually 3 parts. So the 9 nights divided into 3 nights of Kali, followed by 3 nights of Lakshmi, followed by 3 nights of Saraswati. And these 3 aspects of Devi also represent the 3 Gunas. So the division of nature, of Prakriti, into the 3 modes or the 3 qualities of nature, being Tamas, Rajas and Sattva. So Kali is associated with Tamas, with the first 3 days, followed by Rajas and Lakshmi, followed by Sattva and Saraswati. And the entire period embodies a kind of movement from gross to subtle in terms of energy, in terms of qualities of the mind and body. And the effort through Navratri period is to engage in sadhana to encourage this movement from gross to subtle. And finally ending in transcendence, which is represented by Saraswati also. So if we look at what these 3 gunas and the 3 aspects of Devi represent, so Tamas is the heaviest quality of nature. It's associated with inertia, with ignorance, with heaviness, lethargy, and with Kali. So Kali is the fiercest aspect of Devi. She is the one who destroys, who destructs, and she has this terrifying appearance also. And when we witness events that are destructive in nature, often even violent or traumatic, that we could say is the working of Kali, which is perhaps destroying something to make way for something else, for instance. And one important thing to understand also here is that the workings of Shakti are impersonal. So this is universal energy. It's not a personal energy, even though we tend to relate to these goddesses in a personal way and we personify them. But they are actually working for the whole. And if we are to align with their movement and to understand a little bit of their movement, then we also need to not be taking a personal perspective. So, for example, if there are certain events that happen in our life that seem to be unpleasant or tragic even, then it's because we're looking at it from our limited perspective. So our limited human mind will not allow us to understand the workings of universal Shakti. So this universal energy is working for harmony of the whole, to bring balance to the whole. and that may result in pain and pleasure to individual entities, individual lives. But again, it is to be understood as the workings of nature as a whole. And it's not that Kali is against someone or something, and it's not that this energy is ever like vindictive, which is what we might tend to think if we are taking personal limited view. But it's truly impersonal. So the second guna, the second aspect of Devi, is Rajas associated with Lakshmi. And so Rajas is the quality of passion, activity, ambition, of achievement, of emotions, even volatility, and acquiring more skills or money, prosperity, abundance, all of these things. And Lakshmi is this energy that is propelling towards this kind of expansion and movement towards progress, towards what we call progress, and towards abundance. So one of the other things that I'd like to point out here is that Shakti is the mother. She is the mother of the creation, and she nurtures and takes care of the creation. And one of the roles of a mother is to teach, and to teach the child. And this teaching is actually the imparting of discernment. That's really what teaching is. You're imparting discernment to somebody to allow them to discern and move in a way in life that's informed by some kind of wisdom. And this movement of Shakti is always happening by this fine discernment. So whether it's in the form of the movement of Kali, which can be destructive, which is bringing something to end and rooting out something, or in the movement of Lakshmi, which is a finer kind of discernment, moving towards whatever is auspicious and helpful in the material way to the human existence, actually to all existence. So this discernment is how life moves. It's the intelligence of life that is moving through discernment. And it would be arrogant to think that we can actually understand it in our human minds. So we cannot. This is not a talk about explaining the intelligence of the universe, or how the intelligence of Shakti actually works. But it's actually just to point out some things so that we can let go of certain misconceptions that we ordinarily hold in our minds about action, about how things happen in the world and what they mean to us. So that's really the purpose in sharing this talk. It's not to give a kind of model for the workings of the universe and to proclaim some kind of final truth about that, but it's only to point out certain things which, when we consider those things, we might let go of certain wrong ideas and wrong beliefs that we've grown up with, particularly in relation to the individual doership and individual intent and will. Because when we view life through the model of these gunas, and we see that actually it's the gunas that are acting, then that takes away that element of personal doership and identification with action. And with that, if that is not there, then things like blaming somebody for what they have done, blaming ourselves for what we have done, those kind of elements really drop away or diminish quite a lot, because you see that actually it's the gunas that are working, the different qualities that are present in people. Not only in people, in all of nature, and even in more abstract ways. Actually, even the yugas, the Satyug, Treta, Dwapar, Kalyug, all these yugas have different levels of the gunas that are emphasized in each one of them. So it's really, a kind of framework that allows us to see how life functions in a more impersonal way, more in terms of energy and nature, the quality of nature that's in operation, rather than, personal individual doers in the form of human beings. So coming back to the three gunas, the final one is sattva, which is associated with lightness and purity of mind and body. And this is represented by Saraswati, and she actually represents transcendence of the thinking mind. And that's why she is the goddess of the arts, of learning, of wisdom. And she actually truly represents discernment, because she represents the finest kind of discernment. So her symbol is the swan, which according to legend is able to separate milk and water. So this very finely tuned discernment is what Saraswati represents, and this discernment operates in art as well as in wisdom or jnana, self-inquiry, where in both these areas there is something other than the thinking mind that is at work. So if you ask an artist, how do they paint or how do they sing, they won't be able to describe to you in a series of steps. It's because it's something beyond the thinking process that's at work, and there's an intuitive power that's at work, and something that is actually touching the essence and bringing the essence into expression. So Saraswati, so the saras means essence, and swa means the self. So the essence of the self, that's what she helps us to discover and to bring into expression. Also, like in wisdom, for example, in Jnana Yoga, the ability to discern between, concepts and the truth, for example, that's also the power and grace of Saraswati. So hers is the most, finely tuned kind of discernment. So that's the model of the three gunas and how the three aspects of Devi relate to that. And, as I was saying, in being able to view life as a functioning of the gunas, we're able to look at it more impersonally and, understand more our position as the witness to this functioning. So actually, as Lord Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, he who perceives the functioning of life merely as the functioning of the gunas and himself stands apart as the witness, that one is fit to realize Brahman. That one is transcended the gunas. So that was just the purpose of the talk, was just to bring into our minds and consciousness a different way of looking at life that helps to negate some of the misconceptions and misapprehensions that we ordinarily hold about action and about the workings of life, functioning of life. And I think it's really important to honor the mother and to understand what she is trying to teach, and to not take a dismissive view of the world of form and the world of happenings. There's an interesting story of Adi Shankaracharya, who's perhaps one of the most important Advaitins ever. He was once crossing a river and he became paralyzed, and he then called out to the mother to help him and save him, and the mother came and she did help and save him, and he was very much a devotee, not only of the mother, also Vishnu and Shiva, and he also emphasized the ritual of devotion in the mutts. So just to say that, it's not that we should take a dismissive view of what happens because, it's all nothing, or that kind of view which sometimes Neo-Advaita tends to hold, but to truly try to align ourselves with the intelligence of life, and to allow that wisdom of the mother and a new kind of conditioning to inform our movements and to inform our bodies and minds through the wisdom of the mother. Thank you.